1734, this square, it's going to come up just a second on the left of the Trolley. This square had become the hanging square, and in 1735, the first woman that was ever hung in the colony of Georgia was hung right out there. Her name was Alice Riley, and she was accused and convicted of murdering the man that she worked for over in Hutchinson Island. But Alice never would own up to that deed. Even on the gallows, she swore we were hanging an innocent woman. And she said because of that, her spirit was going to remain here forever in this square. Now, until this square was so well lit, you could come out here at night and you could pick up with the naked eye what's called an orb of light, a round circle. Usually you pick them up on film, but occasionally you'll run into one that you can actually see. This one was round about the size of a softball, I would say. Had a pale yellow-green glow to it. You could sit out here and just watch it as it traced those tree limbs going around and around that square. I believe it is Anna's spirit. I think it's still out there. I think the only reason we don't see it is it's entirely too well lit out there at night. And if you ride around the city very much, it won't take you long to figure out that's the best lit square in the city. I think it's planned that way. And probably also because of this, too. You see the buildings that are right over there, particularly the one that says condominiums for sale, right above our home. When they start selling those things, and we'll be camping out on the doorstep. Those buildings sit right on top of our first cemetery. Bodies and all still underneath them. Yeah, now they do. When the buildings were built, late 1800s, early 1900s, they were office buildings and department stores, and didn't cause too much trouble because it was rare that a single person was in the house or in the building all by themselves. And you know, you really, when there's a bunch of people around, you really can't tell if things do go bump in the night or they don't. But a few years ago, the man that owns the building right here on the corner renovated that top floor up there, turned it into apartments, and started trying to rent it to SCAD students. First 2 years he had problems. I knew 2 young men that lived up there a little less than 3 weeks. I saw the guys moving out one morning, went to talk to them, absolutely sure I was going to get a good story. Now, they said that the night before, both of them had been in the same room. One young man was sitting up on his bed reading and had a comforter pulled up over him. His friend was standing in the hallway, but right in the door to the room. But they said all of a sudden, the whole atmosphere in that room changed. That it felt like the temperature had dropped about 10 degrees. It felt like somebody was staring at them. And they're looking around the room trying to figure out what's going on. Then the comforter levitated off of the bed about 3 inches, and very slowly, inch by inch, started walking itself off of that bed. Stayed level, hovered over the floor for a few seconds, and then dropped, like somebody had dropped something into the center of it. Those guys said by the time that thing hit the floor, they were out of that room, and they had no intentions of going back other than to snatch some of their belongings and get out of there again. The young man sitting on the bed said he thinks if the ghost had snatched it wouldn't have bothered him as much as that inch by inch walking itself off of that bed. You can always tell when somebody's telling you a true ghost story, because it's, particularly if it's the first couple of times they told it, the whole time they're telling you, their voice kind of trembles and their eyes keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, oh my Lord, this really happened. On the left of the trolley, y'all, is our second cemetery, but we didn't build over this one. The little buildings that you see out there are crypts. And you only find those type of crypts on the South Georgia coast, right along this area. See, at one end there's an arch, and the inside of that arch is filled in with a different color brick or filled in with brick. You can see it on some of them. It's actually a door, and it goes underneath the ground about 6.5, 7 feet. Now, when they went to inter somebody, this crypts were for family burial. And the cemetery was open from 1750 to 1853, so 103 years. When they went to inter somebody, they would break out the brick in the door, And inside there were shelves on either side. Most people buried in a crypt in that time frame were just wrapped in a white shroud and laid out on one of those shelves. And then, of course, the door was bricked back up airtight. With our heat, those little buildings worked as natural crematoriums, little portable ovens. Within a year to 18 months, the body would be reduced to a very, very fine, dry ash. Well, the next time they go to bury somebody, break out the brick again, go in, brush the ashes off on the floor, pick up any major bones that had disintegrated, put them on an urn on the back wall of the crypt that was there for that purpose, and lay the next guy out. 140 years, we've got a nice little pile of ashes down here on the floor. 1864, Sherman and the gang came in at the scene. They bivouacked in our cemetery for a year. They opened all but 5 of our crypts, and they cooked, ate, and slept in them. We've got photographs in the Historical Society showing stovepipes coming out, bending up, venting little pot-bellied stoves. And we've got a journal left by one young man mentioning how nice it was to lay down in the soft brown dirt on the bottom of the mausoleum floor. I claim it's a little different spin on sleeping with the enemy than what he really had in mind. Yeah, it gives you the heebie-jeebies, doesn't it? Those things were still open when I was a kid. You could see down in there. Actually, the doors have not always been, it was dug out. There were very steep little solid steps going down, and they were bricked up on the side. It hasn't always been all underground. When the city took the cemetery over in the 1950s, they filled it in because a child running out there, unaware of it, could fall down there on their head, and we'd have another dose in the cemetery. And there's enough. Thank you. I don't know if any of y'all have walked through that cemetery or not, but Sherman's men did a little tombstone etiquette while they were here. Just recarved the numerals, like you can take a perfectly good 3 and turn it into an 8. You can take a 1 and it can become a 7, a 4, a 9, or a 6. We got folks buried out there that died before they were born. An 11-year-old died leaving a wife and 3 children. I mean, that's pretty precocious. And don't y'all wish. And poor designer Barad died at age 41, shortly after the birth of her 114th child. We don't know whether she had 11 or 14, but we figured something was altered. It's fun to walk through there and just read some of the epitaphs. Y'all, this is Hamilton Turner House, and it's built as a private home, finished around 1873. Now operates as a very fine inn. Shortly after the Turner family moved into this, the Hamilton family moved into this place, 2 of their daughters died. I believe it was in the yellow fever epidemic in 1876. But Mr. Hamilton was so upset by the death of the girls that he resolved to keep the rest of the children inside that house as much as he possibly could. He hired private tutors. This man was rather well off. Hired private tutors to teach him, and then started carting in recreational things to entertain them. And of course, you know, as they got older, these got more elaborate and more adult style. For years, even after it was an inn, up until somewhere between 20 and 25 years ago, on the 2nd floor, there was it's equivalent to an English billiard room. And in the attic, there was a 2-lane, full-scale bowling alley. Now, those have been gone at least 20 years, maybe closer to 25. People checking in there today say that they'll go in the front door before the innkeeper even gets there to greet them. They'll be greeted by a billiard ball that will roll slowly down from the 2nd floor and drop right at their feet. And when they turn to show it to the innkeeper a few seconds later, it's nowhere to be found. A lot of people say that they have heard the bowling balls in the attic, swear they've even heard those tin pins go over. And some people feel like they've seen the girls. You know, like walk into your room real quick and you know good well you saw 2 children in there playing that you've never seen before, but they're nowhere to be found. And then last year there was a woman that got on one of our history tours early one morning and said she was staying there, just come in the night before. She told the tour guide she got in kind of late, she was tired, she wanted a hot shower and a nice bed. Said she was just stepping out of that shower and happened to glance back at the glass doors surrounding the tub just in time to see the wee handprints of a child as they appeared in the moisture on the doors. Oh, what another movie. I noticed y'all aren't emailing to make reservations. You could buy a house at Jones Street. I swear, I grew up on Jones Street. I don't know a house on Jones Street anymore. Some of them are simple things. Others are more elaborate. It just all depends. I'll tell you another thing you'll find. Y'all know what a cooling board door is. Well, these houses, in the time frame they were built in, somebody's died in every one of them. And it was laid out in that house. But when they're preparing the body for burial, they used to take down a door, usually from the basement, and lay the body out on that to wash it and dress it for burial. And you can always tell a cooling board door because it's going to be perfectly flat and level on one side, and it'll have cross pieces on the other where you can sit it on sawhorses or chairs. And I can go through basement after basement in this house and find cooling board doors. Y'all, look out at the roof line of this house. Look at those pergolas back there. I want to take those home with me anytime I do. This house in the 1920s was owned by a local judge and his wife. Both of them came from some pretty wealthy families. They had 2 sons and had raised a nephew of the wife's in that household. And all 3 of the boys were in their 20s. One son started dating the daughter of one of our mafia handlers. And everybody in town told him if he didn't leave that woman alone, he was going to wake up dead one morning, which is just sort of a southern joke of you're going to get in deep trouble. Well, one morning his father opened the front door to pick up the morning paper and found his son's extremely dead body laying out of the front stoop with a very inappropriate part of it stuck in his jacket pocket. Well, that information was all over the city in about 2 seconds. The newspaper the next day had to do this with a little discretion, of course. Big headlines, judge's son dies in mysterious fall from porch. Quite a call. The police know exactly what's happened. They've been trying to get the mafia guy in jail for years. They are hoping that this time, not only can they get him there, they can keep him forever. They're questioning the remaining son and the nephew, hoping that one of these boys might have a little piece of information, maybe something they don't even realize they know, that will allow them to make an arrest and get a conviction. And then about 6 weeks after that first death, there was another incident. And the police published an article in the newspaper explaining to the local population that they knew for sure that those boys had absolutely nothing to do with that death. They also realized in retrospect that they had been questioning them a little too harshly. And the only other explanation they offered for the event that took place was maybe somebody had slipped into that house. I think that works on the theory that if the kids are on the stairs early in the morning, they're going to be coming in, not going out. And they'll be entirely too see. No, actually, SCAD, some of their labs stay open, if not all night long, almost all night long. I know the photography lab stays open all night. I think that some of the shops, furniture shops and things like that, computer centers, stay open until 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. These kids work half the night. They're up constantly. Because they're out running the streets all kind of hours, it cuts the crime rate in this town like you wouldn't believe. Well, if you're walking down the street doing mischief and you see somebody the other way, you assume they might have seen you. Whether they did or not, you know. Now, y'all, over on the left of the trolley is Sixpence Pub. It's a pretty good pub, actually. I had lunch with some friends there just this past week. Sixpence has a ghost, and the ghost is a little bit obsessive and likes to play with things. Bubblegum machine. Now, the bubblegum machine is now in kind of the back of the room, but for years, it's just inside the front door on the right. They get there in the morning, all the gumballs would be on the floor, and not scattered randomly about like they just rolled down the machine. Lined up in straight rows around the bottom of the gumball machine. One morning, years ago, the day manager got there. She immediately grabbed the phone and called the night manager. She said, "What in the hang happened to this place last night?" He said, "Now, I was busy, but I left that rock the restaurant spotless. I mean, what are you complaining about, baby?" She said, "Oh, I'm not complaining at all." She said, "I just kind of want you to tell me about closing up downstairs in the basement. Tell me about that." He said, "What's to tell?" He said, "I put the coolers on the night temperature, turned out the lights, and left." She said, "Yeah, and what I'm trying to figure out is how you turned out the lights, because all the bulbs are out of the socket, laying in a straight row down the table in the basement." So I know buildings here where five file drawers that are 5 drawers high have been moved over across the street. This is Savannah Theater. Now, there's been a theater on this piece of property since 1880. Not that present building. That one was built in the 50s. I saw it. But the cast that's there that does Broadway on Bull Street, yeah, I think that's the name of it. They have been going through the microfilm of these early Savannah newspapers. Their intention was to clip articles or to photostat them. Articles of famous actors and actresses that played the Savannah stage, and they have found a few of those. Mostly what they found is spooky stuff that went on in that theater in the 1800s, or at least the previous building. Now, neither the new building nor the turn of either century had any effect on the spooky stuff. A friend of mine takes care of costumes for a children's theater, and she was working in there a couple of years ago getting the costumes out late one afternoon. A man named George was supposed to get there to help her. And Jean said she heard a noise out in the hall. She's in the costume room. And she said she just called out, "Hey, George, come on in. There's plenty of work to do." She said there was no response. George didn't stick his head in the door. She listened for a few minutes, and she was like, "Well, I know I heard something." She stuck her head out and looked in the hall to see what it was. When she did, she said there was an object out there that was egg-shaped. She said it was about 18 inches tall. It was kind of floating off of the floor about 6 inches, just kind of dancing around out in that hallway. Jean's crazy lady. She stepped right on out in the hall to see what this thing, get a better look at this thing. When she did, it backed away from her. Well, she tried to go around it to see what it looked like three-dimensionally. She went to the right, it moved and blocked her. She tried it the other way, it moved and blocked her again. Finally, she stepped back into the costume room. When she did, this object came toward her. Jean wanted to find out what it was. She said she just wanted to touch it. Well, when she reached out and touched it, her hand went inside of it, and she said it was like dropping her hand into a bowl of dry ice. She said it didn't stick to her hand, but it was literally so cold it hurt. And she waited on George out on the street. Now, we're coming back on the north end of Colonial Cemetery. Y'all, when Sherman left this place, this cemetery was in shambles. What they did in Iraq, they left like 8,000 tombstones so that they could lay them down, build their own road if the roads were muddy or washed out or anything. Stayed erect, I'll be honest, stayed erect until the 1950s. Late 1800s, it was in pretty bad shape. These houses across the street were there, but other than that, there wasn't a lot through here. There was a young servant girl who used to walk through this way going home from work at night. Maybe it was a shortcut, I don't know. But one evening she's going through here, and a young man approached her and asked if he might have permission to escort her to her house. Well, she said she was real quick to grant permission, that he was extremely handsome, very well dressed, perfect manners. She said over about a 5-month period of time, he met her and walked her home quite frequently. She was always treating her as though she were a lady, even though it's quite obvious he was just a servant. Well, she fell in love with him. She said she knew nothing could come of it because of different stations in life, but she wanted to find out what his name was, and he wouldn't tell her. So one evening he met her and walked her home, and she decided she'd go back practice. She was hoping maybe she could catch him going into one of these nice homes, figure out which family, maybe even figure out which son. They're coming down through here. She's expecting him